Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Elise if you're new here, and I do lots of tutorial videos, cleaning videos, home organization, keto videos, day in the life, mom videos, little vlogs here and there if I'm doing something that I think that will be useful to other people. So if you like that kind of stuff, make sure that you subscribe to my channel by hitting the subscribe button below and that little bell. That'll notify you when I post new videos. And also don't forget to give it a thumbs up if you like a video, because that lets me know what kind of content that you guys would like to see next. Today's video is going to be part one of a wood sign tutorial, and I'm making a 4-piece set. So it's going to say wash, dry, fold, repeat for a friend's laundry room. And this is the second set of these that I've made, and I love this idea and this design. So these are really fun ones to make. I always obviously enjoy making things that I like and that I would want to put in my home. So these are a fun one. And I already cut the wood for the actual sign. And right now I'm measuring out and cutting the wood for my frames, which will go on each sign around each one. So I'm measuring them out. I used to use my measuring tape and measure each piece, but I find that it's a lot easier and I'm making more accurate cuts when I just line everything up and mark it that way and then do my cuts. This way works for me. It might not work for you, but if you'd like to measure, if you prefer to do it that way, then that is totally fine as well. So I just measure my two side pieces first, and then I measure and cut the top and bottom pieces. I like when the outside of my frame lines up a little bit longer on top and bottom than on the sides. These are super rustic farmhouse style signs, and when I'm making my signs, I choose to just butt the ends up to each other instead of doing a 45-degree angle cut, but you could totally do that if you prefer it. I also feel like this style frame is a lot more forgiving. You're able to flip things around after you cut it and make sure that the wood is lined up with your sign properly, where if you do an angled cut, you're kind of limited to just where you cut it and you have to put it where it is. So I'm going to finish cutting all of this wood and then on to the next step, which will be sanding. And I forgot to mention that for these signs, the wood I'm using is a 1x2, and I have my sign parts, those are a 1x10, and it's cut down to a perfect square, which is close to 9.25 inches. So if you're wondering what kind of wood you need, that's what I do, and I like to do it down to a perfect square. And safety first, especially if you have kids at home, you always want to unplug your saw or whatever kind of power tools you're using and close everything back up afterwards. Close your blade down, turn it to the side, anything you can do to avoid little fingers getting hurt. Right now, I'm lining up each piece and sign together so that I know where each frame goes to, because no one is exactly the same, and I did all of my cut measurements specific to each sign. So I'm just lining them up, and then I'm marking them with a number on the sign, and then also writing down that same number in front of it on my table here. And my table is very well loved, as you can see. And then I'm going to get to sanding. So I need to sand each frame piece and also the wood signs. I use 80 grit sandpaper with my orbital sander, and I go with the grain of the wood. When I finish sanding, I'm going to dust everything off really well and then bring it inside and get to painting the first coat on the wood sign part. And I use the Waverly chalk paint in white. This is my favorite chalk paint for signs, and it really takes a lot of paint for that first coat, especially right after sanding. The wood's going to absorb a lot, but then for the second coat and then any subsequent coats, if you really want a thick layer on there, it takes less and less. Going to refuel while I let that first coat dry. I'm having some yummy meat and cheese that our friends left here from a little potluck we had yesterday. And here are those signs. and you can see that you can still see the wood grain showing through quite a bit, so that's why we're going to add that second coat in just a second. And now we're going on to the second coat and getting that on there. And when you do the second coat, you really just want to make sure that everything is covered nicely. If it's not as thick as you'd like, then you can always add a third coat, but for these I'm just going to do 2. The paintbrushes that I use are just the foam sponge ones from Michaels, and they're the Michaels brand, whatever that is. And I reuse these every single time. So they can be disposable, but there's no reason why if you have a sink near you, you can't rinse them out, especially with the chalk paint. It's water-based. So it's really easy to rinse them out, and then I just leave them to dry at the side of the sink. And now I am going to cut out my stencils. I use the Oracal 813 vinyl stencil material. It's specifically made for using as stencils, so it's not as tacky, the adhesive on the back, as a permanent or semi-permanent adhesive vinyl. So it makes it really easy to take your stencil off of your sign or whatever you're stenciling a design onto. Instead of ripping off the finish when you go to peel it off, it comes up pretty easily. After I get my vinyl cut to size, I'm just going to put it on my cutting mat here. And for larger or longer designs, you can actually just feed the vinyl directly into the machine. You don't need to use a cutting mat. But for things like this, I prefer to use it because I can just load it into the machine and kind of let it do its thing without having to worry about it. And I use a Silhouette Cameo. I'm an OG Silhouette Cameo owner, so I believe this is the 2nd generation, and I've had it for about 9 years. And it works with the Silhouette Studio software that you can download for free off the internet. And it works great for designing your own designs, or if you want to use them for personal use, you can download designs off of their website, and it's really easy to import them into the software. It just opens right up if you link it to your account. So I love the Silhouette brand plotters. They are super user-friendly, very easy to use. Learning how to use them and do all the tricks, it does take a little bit of time, but if you watch YouTube tutorials or just look up on Pinterest, there's so many helpful ideas, and that's basically how I learned how to use mine, along with a good friend of mine who had one at the time, and I think she still does. She got me hooked on Silhouette and helped me to learn the basics. So if you have a friend with one, that can be really helpful too, if you can pick their brain a little bit, or if they can give you some tips to get started, or even show you how to use it. So I already have mine weeded. I just weeded these, and that just means I took out the excess vinyl that I don't need so that my design is showing. And I'm going to get those set off to the side and go out to the garage and get to staining my frame pieces. For these signs, I'm using the Minwax stain in the color Jacobine, and I love my Minwax stains. The color goes on amazingly, but they're definitely not my favorite anymore. My new favorite are the Varathane stains that you can buy at Home Depot. They're no longer carrying the Minwax stains, but the Varathane ones that are water-based, they cure in only an hour, where this one I'll have to let dry overnight before I can nail it to my signs. So definitely look into the Varathane stains, if you're going to be staining any wood. They're great, and I can do a sign in a day with those ones, where these ones, it takes a little bit of more time and I have to prep a lot more. If you guys have any questions, let me know down in the comments below, and that way I can maybe answer some of them in my tutorial tomorrow, which will be the second part of this one. When you're staining, you want to go with the grain, just like when you're sanding the wood. So it's really important to work with it long ways. And then the end pieces, I try to just saturate with stain as much as I can so that it fills in all of the holes. This clip actually wraps up part 1 of this tutorial. So I'm going to finish up staining these pieces for the frames, and tomorrow's tutorial will have me painting my wood signs and also attaching these frame pieces. Thanks for watching, guys, and stay tuned for tomorrow's.